Your brain's focus is not willpower. It is hormonal. When cortisol spikes, your prefrontal cortex shuts down. When testosterone rises, your drive returns. When estrogen balances, your memory holds. When VA goal tone falters, your thinking fractures. Creatine is not muscle fuel. It is brain fuel. It does not just keep neurons alive. It keeps cognition alive. Think about it. You have been told to just focus like it is a muscle you can flex. But when your endocrine system is screaming, willpower has nowhere to hide. The people who think clearly under pressure are not better at discipline. Their hormones, their mitochondria, their autonomic balance are doing the work. And here is the part nobody told you. You cannot out-willpower a failing system. You have to understand it. When cortisol crosses the threshold, the amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex. Not metaphorically. The neural circuit physically redirects. Porges found something unsettling. The vagus nerve does not just regulate heart rate. It modulates the very circuits that govern executive function. When VA goal tone drops, decision-making accuracy collapses. McMorris and colleagues showed that phosphocreatine buffering in the cerebral cortex is not a minor detail. It is the primary way neurons sustain activity during high-demand cognitive tasks. Without it, thinking fractures within minutes. Duman's team demonstrated that BDNF is not just a growth factor. It is the primary driver of neurogenesis in the hippocampus, and its levels plummet under chronic stress. Huberman's work on heart rate variability and cognitive performance shows a direct correlation. When VA goal tone drops, decision-making accuracy collapses. When testosterone rises, drive returns. You feel this in your head when the clock ticks down. You feel it in the silence between thoughts. You feel it when your focus fractures. The system is not broken. It is just running on the wrong fuel. Phosphocreatine is the buffer that lets neurons fire fast enough for actual thought. When it runs out, thinking fractures within minutes. McMorris found that supplementation improves cognitive performance in young adults with normal brain function. That should feel obvious. It is not. You have been told creatine is for bodybuilders. It is not. It is for the brain. Here is what nobody connects. The same phosphocreatine system that buffers ATP in muscle cells does the same work in your cerebral cortex. The same creatine that builds muscle builds cognition. The same molecule. And here is the part that flips everything. When cortisol spikes, when testosterone dips, when estrogen falls out of balance, the mitochondria do not just slow down. They fail. Not metaphorically. Mitochondrial efficiency drops measurably under hormonal stress. The brain does not just get tired. It literally loses fuel. That is why the people who think clearly under pressure are not just disciplined. Their mitochondria are working. Their hormonal regulation is holding. Their autonomic balance is intact. And now comes the thing that ties it all together. There is a direct correlation between mitochondrial efficiency and cognitive decline. Not age. Efficiency. You can have a young brain that is failing. You can have an old brain that is running clean. The difference is not time. It is the mitochondria. And the data from heart rate variability and sleep tracking confirms it. When mitochondrial efficiency drops, cognitive performance drops. The same signal appears across every metric. The data from McMorris and colleagues at the University of North Carolina shows something that should stop you cold. When they measured phosphocreatine levels in the brain, they found the concentrations vary dramatically between people. Some individuals have 3 times the brain creatine of others. And this is not random. The concentrations track with sleep quality, with stress patterns, with the autonomic balance you can measure on a standard wearable. This is where the previous findings start to fit together in a way that feels almost engineered. Creatine is not just stored in the brain. It is actively regulated by the same hormonal and autonomic systems that determine whether you can think clearly in a crisis. That is why the supplements that work for some people do nothing for others. The brain creatine levels in their system are already optimal. The variable is not the pill. The variable is the system around it. And here is the pattern that has been hiding in plain sight across every study you have seen. The people who think clearly under pressure do not have better willpower. They have better autonomic regulation. They maintain better hormonal balance. Their brains have the capacity to use the fuel that everyone else has access to. The same molecule. The same fuel. The difference is the system that delivers it. Why would evolution pay that cost? The brain consumes 20% of your body's energy every second, every hour, every day. And the phosphocreatine system is so critical, so fragile, so metabolically expensive that evolution had to commit to it. When the autonomic system fails, the hormonal cascade fails, the mitochondrial efficiency drops, the phosphocreatine buffer fails, the cognitive performance fails. Why would evolution pay that cost? Because the cost of cognition is the price of survival. The system fails, and the brain fails. The cost of cognition is the price of the brain's ability to predict and adapt. The system fails, and the brain fails. The brain runs a constant simulation of the future, and that simulation costs energy in ways most people never consider. A single cognitive prediction can require up to 300 ATP molecules per millisecond. That number sounds high. That number is accurate. That is the energy cost of one thought. That is the cost of one decision. That is the cost of one prediction. Here is what nobody connects. The same hormonal system that regulates your stress response also regulates your cognitive capacity. When cortisol spikes, it does not just shut down the prefrontal cortex. It shuts down the fuel supply. The autonomic nervous system is not just a bystander. It is the traffic controller. When VA gold tone drops, the brain does not just lose focus. It loses its ability to fuel itself. And BDNF. It is not just a growth factor. It is the delivery mechanism for the fuel. When BDNF drops, the brain is not just losing neurons. It is losing its ability to receive the fuel. The mitochondria are not just the power plants. They are the storage tanks. When mitochondrial efficiency drops, the brain does not just get tired. It gets starved. So when you think clearly under pressure, you are not just relying on willpower. You are relying on a system that has been optimized for millions of years. Your hormones, your mitochondria, your autonomic balance, they are all working together to keep the fuel flowing. And here is the thing that most people do not realize. The fuel is not just for the brain. It is for the entire body. When your brain fails, your body fails. When your body fails, your brain fails. You need to hear the next slide, because the next slide will tell you exactly what happens when that calibration fails. And you need to know that. So here is what matters. You cannot out-willpower a failing system. You have to understand it. And you have to act on it. That means prioritizing sleep. That means managing stress. That means measuring your heart rate variability. That means taking creatine if your brain creatine levels are low. That means understanding that your hormones are the traffic controllers of your cognition. Corges found that the vagus nerve does not just regulate heart rate, it modulates the very circuits that govern executive function. Morris and colleagues showed phosphocreatine buffering in the cerebral cortex is the primary way neurons sustain activity during high-demand cognitive tasks. Duman's team demonstrated BDNF is the primary driver of neurogenesis in the hippocampus. Huberman's work on heart rate variability and cognitive performance shows a direct correlation. So here is what you take away from this. Your ability to think clearly in a crisis is not a personality trait. It is a physiological capacity. And that capacity can be measured. It can be tracked. It can be supported. The people who seem to have superhuman focus under pressure are not relying on magic. They are relying on a system that has been optimized for millions of years. Your hormones, your mitochondria, your autonomic balance, they are all working together to keep the fuel flowing. And if you want to go deeper into the research, the calm. What if the reason you cannot focus is not lack of discipline, but a mismatch between your system's actual state and what you are trying to do? All the pieces we have connected, hormones, phosphocreatine, mitochondrial efficiency, autonomic tone, they do not just work in parallel, they calibrate each other. When one drifts, the others compensate until they cannot. The most practical thing you can do today is not to add another supplement. It is to measure what you already have. Sleep, heart rate variability, your own baseline. That baseline is your personal data on whether your system is actually delivering what your brain needs. If you want to go deeper into the research, the calm.